Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Welcome to the Talk Black Radio Show. I'm your host, Trevon Muhammad, and alongside me or across from me today is my co-host, Brother David Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
And we've also got a special guest, our sister, Iola Williams. How are you, sis?
I'm very well. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And so, for those who don't know, Sister Iola is a media and communications expert. She runs a communications consultancy and also heads up the media and communications committee of the Solution Room, which we're going to get into discussing in a little bit. We're also expecting our brother Dean Okai. I believe he's in the building, almost here, who is an entrepreneur, community organizer, and a founding member of the Solution Room, which is basically a UK think tank which aims to bring together existing black organizations in the UK to work together to provide solutions to some of the challenges that we face. How is everyone feeling today?
Very good.
Very good. Cold, but good. But good.
Well, this is coming to that point of the year now, isn't it? Coming to that point of the year.
Yes, sir.
Now, we're going to be discussing a few different topics today. One of the things I wanted to look at, I know Black History Month has just gone past, but Black History should really be all year round.
Definitely.
So what we wanted to do is we wanted to look at some black organizations and talk about some of the inspirations that each of us have had in terms of our viewpoint, in terms of how we see black progress, what's actually inspired us to be on the journeys that we're on. So we wanted to talk about black organizations and also some of the lessons perhaps we can learn from past organizations to bring to the present. We also wanted to talk about some of the, what's been going on in the news, some of the allegations around some of the biggest actors that we can think of. Obviously, Kevin Spacey being one of them, a few others, and also MPs who have been kind of wrapped up in, I don't know how to explain it, but basically it really revolves around, I guess, sexual harassment charges that have been leveled against them. It seems to be a really a growing thing. I think it started off, we were speaking about it here on Talk Black Radio, Harvey Weinstein, and then it's just kind of mushroomed out where it's all over Hollywood, and now we've got MPs stepping down off the back of similar situations. So we wanted to discuss that and just where we're going, not just in terms of Parliament and Hollywood, but where we're going as a society. We also wanted to look about these JFK files. So we know, we spoke about this before, the government or Donald Trump releasing some files related to the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And we haven't really got any files that would, shed too much light on that. But it seems like other things are coming out. One of the documents that came out was around Martin Luther King and some accusations and allegations that were made about his life. So we're going to discuss that too. And we also want to talk about some of the youth violence that's kind of, this year has been quite a tough year in terms of youth violence. A lot of young people have lost their lives. They say that, according to statistics now, there has been twice as many deaths via knife crime in London as there were last year. And we're not even actually at the end of 2017 yet. There's my dad just creeping in slowly into the room. So we're gonna discuss that too, just in terms of youth violence and some of the causes of this issue and some of the solutions that we can bring to bear. So if we go back now to the beginning and I wanted to start off really by talking about inspirations. For you, Sister Iola,
Yes.
obviously you're heavily involved in the Solution Room. Just having a quick look at your bio and going through some of the different things that you've done. Would you like to summarize, just tell us a little bit more about yourself, just for our listeners who may not be aware of you?
Sure. Okay. Well, my name is Iola Williams, and I'm the founder of 1111 Communications. So I focus on PR, marketing, and events. Recently, we just had the Dr. Boyce Watkins event, which I was involved in organising, and also doing a little bit.
We heard that was a big
PR
success. Like, I saw some of the YouTube clips and stuff. It looked really good.
Definitely, it was a great turnout. And speaking on organisations, it was great to see so many people come out, and much of the audience was like a relatively new audience. It wasn't like the conscious community or sort of familiar faces. It was a new sort of emerging crowd, or maybe they've been hiding. I don't know, but it was great to see them out.
Being very modest here, because it's not that she was just involved in that. She actually went to bat to get Dr. Boyce Watkins to come.
Over.
Yeah, so she actually says in her own words, she stalked him, professional stalker, and actually went and found him, and then was able to make that happen. But what's how Brother Dr. Boyce Watkins moves is he has quite a big team, so you may not realise what's happened in the background
to actually make that happen.
Ta-da. That's my point. Sorry to interrupt, but I thought you were being too modest.
Justin. Thank you very much.
Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too.
Okay.
Yes, I am in the game of bigging up people, but I suddenly big up myself. But it was Dr. Boyce Watkins' team was great. But yes, essentially I contacted him from here. I was planning to go to the States, and I just said, I need to meet you. And I sort of social media stalked him professionally, of course, and if there's such a thing. And, we started talking on Facebook, and then literally I was due to go out to Chicago. Incidentally, he was in Atlanta, preparing for the All Black National Convention. I was actually planning to be in Atlanta the next week, so I said, we're going to make it happen. So it was, by synchronicity, serendipity, we managed to make it happen. And he said, look, I really love London. It's one of my favourite cities. I'd really like to do an event there. Talk. And yeah.
Ta-da.
All right. Now, if we go to we could actually start here in terms of the inception of that event. What was it that made you want to actually put that together and actually get Dr. Boyce over?
Well, I mean, it was really his idea, essentially. I was contacting him for something else, another project that I'll be launching soon. However, economics is at the foundation of our community, and I believe personally that our liberation will be an economic one. So it just made sense. He has a fan base here, but he's never done anything here. So there's much to be learned in terms of business, financial literacy, and it just seemed to make sense. There was a demand. I actually did my own sort of on the ground market research, and there was definitely a demand for him to come over here. So
it's interesting that when you talk about economics and financial literacy, I guess that's something that generally does stand out in our community, because you say there's I think it's what's the figure? Is it 300 billion?
300 billion, yeah.
300 billion pounds. The black power.
In the UK.
In the UK.
Got that much money?
Well, combined. It's combined across the sort of BME, as they call it, demographic.
Okay. I have to be honest. That's one of the things that I find really difficult, because I'm also a journalist, and when you go through the figures and you're looking for black statistics, and then they say it's black, minority, ethnic. Well, that's
Yes.
black, that's Asian,
That includes people who own private jets and have huge companies in the Asian community who literally run Bradford and Southall and other spaces, whether it's Birmingham or whatever, for the good of their own community. Which, I mean, round of applause. It just doesn't give us a real understanding of what we actually have.
That's right.
So I guess part of what we're going to do, sorry to interrupt you there, but I guess some of what we have to do is create those spaces that we can have our own independent figures.
Yeah, that's going to be important.
Work out what we're doing.
Definitely.
Is that part of the solution room?
Not specifically, however, it is part of what I want to do in terms of my own sort of, brand 1111 communications.
Because that's going to be valuable.
I mean, we may incorporate that into the solution room, definitely. However, it's something I personally, in particular want to do, because it's just something we just don't have.
Yes.
The statistics are all over the place. I found that out, again, more recently, working with a client of mine in the hair and beauty industry. And, even Channel 4, BBC were asking me questions, and they were looking at me as the authority. And I'm like, I've got access to this sort of bare minimum. These papers actually cost money, to be, one, conducted in the research papers, and obviously, two, to access. You can go to the British Library. But then, even then, they're not up to date, and they're not specific, as we said again, for the black community. So that's the issue. We're all sort of clumped together as this ethnic minority, or BME, or
Which
BAME.
works if you want to say stuff is improving. When they want to say, okay, the BME
Possibly,
community are doing great, money's flowing through, it's great, but generally when that stuff happens, it doesn't represent what's actually going on in our community.
It's not reflective at all. And this is something definitely we'll be looking at, as I said, whether it's Solution Room, and also part is integral to my work, in terms of the statistics. So, definitely something needs to be done.
I'll put it. When we have different guests on the solution, I think there's one underlying theme that kind of runs across the different guests that we have, and it's generally that each guest that comes on has an interest in our community, wants to do something positive for our community. And what we wanted to talk about today is some of the reasons behind it, the inspirations behind that. So for you personally, what is it that's inspired you in your journey in terms of, you're talking about some of the things that you want to do, some of the things that you've done. What inspires you in terms of your journey?
I would say that it's just about being self-determinate. So I've always believed that we are great people, but unfortunately we're always at the bottom, in every metric scale, we're always at the bottom. So for me, it's about empowering ourselves to be where we ought to be. For this generation in particular, millennials, I see that there is an emergence of entrepreneurialism. They've really got that. The older generation before, Generation X's, they struggle a little bit more, just in terms of, maybe it's fear, maybe it's the sort of, social conditioning of, go to school, get a job, that type of thing. So it really is just about, I do everything I say with the Sankofa state of mind. So it's about going back and remembering how great we were and taking all of those lessons and bringing it to the forefront for a better future for us to progress.
Push us forward today. Robert David, I'm going to bring you in on that point. In terms of your community outlook, your outlook in terms of what we can do as black people, what we're capable of, what has inspired your outlook? And I guess your investment in time in terms of our community, what's actually inspired you to be interested and to work towards us making progress as black people?
One of the key things is genocide.
Okay,
we have no choice. It's like asking why do you breathe? I'm saying we're non-existent if we don't do that. And it's a journey for me in terms of inspiration. When I was reflecting, my first introduction is Marcus Garvey, and then that lead me into a whole new world of black world, a productive black world. But in that journey, it started off financial, like I just said, and then realizing, okay, there's still something missing.
Yes.
And then realizing, okay, there's a mind shift that we need to do.
Yes.
And it makes a piece, we taught, isn't it, in the teachings that we were captured, we've been ruined. The words used, ruined. So there's a repair needed.
Yes.
So economics we need to establish and a repairing of the mind. And so right now, that's my place where I'm seeing the importance of a new mind, a new thinking. So when I'm seeing with the young people as well, I was around a few of them yesterday, and their entrepreneurism, their freeness to do for things for self, as opposed to you go to older generation, it's more
safety based.
It's more cloudy, it's more slower to get things done. But the younger people, they ain't the clouds there, they just do. If the cloud's there, I got to put it there. And I'm like, okay, they didn't need to hear that. They actually didn't need to hear that because they're not even thinking that, please. And so it's refreshing being around the young when they're guided. But then also the young that ain't, we just see that you're going to go into that issue later. But when we see on the news, they present our people as demons, as monsters. And some have turned into that, but we meant to represent, we've got a solution room, but we're meant to represent the solution. And I find when we go to those people who are called those terrible names, and we go with them in a certain spirit, you find actually there's light in that person, or there's a reason for that person's situation.
Yes, yes.
They talk about, what's it the other day, that white man who killed, is it Las Vegas?
The shooter. Yeah, I've forgotten his name.
They're always, they're saying he rained down bullets on people, killing over around 50 people. But they're looking at him and saying, why? What caused you to be such a way?
They want to humanize.
That's
him.
it.
Yeah.
But that is human. You want to see the reasons why someone's the way they
It's
are.
just that policy doesn't seem to always apply to us.
But
in
that's
our
the
opinion,
normal. That's how human beings should be. You look at something and you reflect why. But with us, that's not used with us.
Yes, sir. We've actually been joined. The man himself has arrived.
Yes, Mr. Suave Suit.
He's got a lot of picks from.
Yes.
Guys. He has a lot to pick from. He's in. But Dean, you work with the gangs. I know I'm not going to do your introduction because you're late. And we all know Dean Okai, who runs the Solution Room. We'll get into more of what he does as it happens. But you work. You're out, I know, on the Sundays talking with the gangs and stuff. How do you find? What's your interaction with them like?
They're young men that I know because I come from these young men. This is the best version of Dean Okai. I have not always been this polished. I haven't always been this guy. And it's very funny, just to take up from what you said about how they humanize Europeans. Paul Moody made that joke. He says, like, white serial killer. Oh my God, he's amazing. We have to study this guy. And when you're black, oh, you'll figure it out. We have enough years where we can bury you under the jail. So when I'm in a circle with these young men, there are men there that have, and young ladies, that have conscience, that have sense, that have remorse, because they've been afforded the position now to have that and to apply it to their younger brothers and sisters. And I'll tell you this one thing, there is not one of them that desires for their children to travel the road that they have traveled. There is not one of them that desires for their younger brothers to be in that. So now they are looking for gang unification because we know there is a bigger gang against us. These aren't, we look at things and we say, oh, we need to get rid of this and get rid of that. We need to protect our communities. And I keep saying to people, our solutions are only going to come from us. What is it the masses haven't learned from historical reference point thus far? There is nobody coming for us.
No, and see, we have to save ourselves, literally.
Absolutely.
Now, if you look in the news over the last couple of weeks, in fact, this week, the BBC kind of did like a TV spot where they talked about rising youth crime. I think in the last 72 hours, I think there was 2 teenagers stabbed, both in South London. And then a few days back, I think it was last week, Sunday, there was an incident which took place in Seven Sisters in Tottenham, where you had basically, this is according to reports, at 3 o'clock in the morning, you had a group of young people out with belts and knives, basically fighting in the street. I think two young brothers were stabbed. One is okay. The other one, I think, is in critical conditions. I want to go through some of the statistics because it's when you look at it, they're saying this year, basically, the teen murder rate has doubled as in comparison to last year. Gun crime is up 42%. Knife crime and robbery offences are up as well. And then at the same time, I don't know if anyone's heard about this whole moped crime thing that's been going on, where they said it's trebled over the past 12 months in London alone. So 16,000 offences where basically someone comes on their moped and then you could rob someone, you could maybe take someone else's moped. And I got family in Stonebridge, not too far from where we are now, where I remember I went to order a pizza and I've ordered the pizza and then when I gave the postcode, they say, no, you have to come off the estate to come get it. Like, we're not coming onto this estate.
They all nodded like, oh yeah, that's how we get our pizza.
Right. And so this is kind of like the state of affairs. And a lot of people, I think our brother in South London, Asher Senator, Code 7, they've been organising these kind of patrols now to go outside of schools afterwards to try and make sure that these things don't happen. And what I wanted to get to really is, what do you feel is the root cause of the issues that we're facing? Because I know there are different, it's not as black and white as it's being made to seem in the media. No. I think we can get that. But I don't think we can get away from the fact that there is something.
What responsibility on
there's
our part?
There is an issue that has to be tackled. And a lot of the time I think it's difficult for us to pinpoint those the underlying issues. So we're doing the best that we can But how do we get? How do you all see the underlying issues? You know, what is it that's actually causing, to your minds, young people to take each other's lives in this way?
Before they come to taking each other's lives, the gang culture has always been there. I would be 17 years old with 14 or 15 other guys from North Peckham Estate. We would go to all dayers together. There were areas that we didn't particularly get on with, and we could fight. You might have an all-dayer at Burgess Park, and a scuffle will break out. There'd be CS gas. Worst case scenario, somebody might get stabbed. Somebody might get lashed with a belt. We still rely on these old slavery tendencies that we have. We will pull it off. It could have been Brockwell Park, it could have been Burgess Park, and you'd be worrying about untouchables from Stonebridge. You'd be worried about guys from Clapham Junction Boys coming down, or whoever it was, or 28s from Brixton. So these phenomena have always been there. They weren't polarized as a media entity to criminalize our children at that time. So have clarity that our children are being targeted to be criminalized, because all I've got to say is post-Cold War, and then I will deliver you statistics: moped crime, knife crime, gun crime. Now, I don't have to do a racial breakdown of moped crime, because European young men are equally as involved. We may start trends, just like hip-hop, and then maybe we're responsible for Vanilla Ice. But that doesn't mean we got to take the blame for the man's music. So this is where these trends have led, in that European youths are equally as involved, but the first thing you have to do is show a picture of a black child and say post-Cold Wars, and then you come with your stats. Moped crime, knife crime, gun crime.
But don't you think we're playing into that?
Absolutely, because our children are susceptible because they live up to a culture. We live up to a culture.
Do you know what it is? It's like, what's been on my mind with it? Because I have children.
Absolutely.
And like yourself, I would be at the all-dayers and know that if it was Roundwood Park, which is in Harlesden, that was going to go good for us. However, if it was Brockwell Park, we're going to have to be ready now. Yeah, okay, so that was that.
I was the other way around.
Okay. And now look how close we are.
Absolutely.
Okay. But what my thinking is more like this. It was a reality when I was a teenager, but then if we go back to like the times of the Windrush, we didn't get here on the Windrush, hop off the thing and go, yo, West Side. Nobody did that when they got here. That actually came later. But I think there's, whether it's morals or it's the education or it's the fact that we handed our children over, we came here, and our parents were so confident in the fact that, oh, look, we're staying in the big house now. Yes. We can just let our children run free and they'll be fine. But we've let our children run free, and this is, because to me, this is only a progression of what was taking place when we were young men. Absolutely. And because we haven't addressed it, it's going to get worse and worse and worse until we actually look for those solutions.
And this is go on, Bro David.
Also, when I was younger, you had them, but then at a certain time you said, okay, I'm going to get a job now. Right. Now there's no jobs and no jobs. You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to college.
I'm going to the market, working in the market. I had a job to go. I had the future to look forward to, like jobs there.
Yes, absolutely. The economy was different at the time. Go ahead, for real.
You just mentioned about culture and foundations and values, and I think that has a lot to be said of, because there's been a loss. Do you know what I mean? In terms of our values and our structures and our families. We don't have that family structure or community structure anymore. When I was younger, I wasn't allowed out. I wasn't a part of that, but I grew up on an estate as well.
Due to our large
I grew up on an estate for the
first. Congratulations to your parents, wherever you are. That's a round of applause for the Talk Black Radio Show.
But there were values I wasn't allowed to play out. I wasn't allowed to mix with a certain crowd. However, there was a value Still, even with the bad kids, the bad boys, you know, there was still a value. They wouldn't go
There was a
necessarily to
line,
kill
maybe,
somebody. There was a line. They weren't going to kill people. There was, but nowadays it seems like there's no value for life.
Yes.
There's nobody that's saying I'm my brother's keeper. You know, nobody. It's all about self. You know, whereas coming from an Afrocentric perspective, it's about community. It's about family. It's about us. You know, so there is a lot to be said about culture.
Absolutely.
And teaching that to our children, especially for my generation, you know, sort of three removed, you know, having been here for like 3 generations, you know, it's all been very much watered down. Like you said, it's been handed over to the English or Europeans. So there's no value there, community value.
And see, this is really interesting that you said that, because I took a little bit of time out of teaching,